Hey everybody, happy Sunday, Wild Cards weekend. Uh Today is January 16th. This is your Sunday submission for MMAnews.com. My name is Ed Carbajal. Make sure you give me a follow on Twitter, where I usually stream this live, and then I send the recording to the MMAnews.com YouTube channel. If you're watching this there, make sure you do the thumbs up, bell notification, like and subscribe and all that. We've got interviews since the ball is rolling again. The UFC came back last night, UFC Vegas 46. We're going to get into those results and a couple other things that happened with the year moving along. Um, all the results are up on MMAnews.com. This week, we already have interviews coming in, courtesy of the Canadian God James Lynch. He spoke with Curtis Blades and the Korean Zombies coach, Eddie Cha. So make sure, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, you do that now so you can check those out and the other stuff that rolls in courtesy of the Canadian God James Lynch. All right. Let's get right into the news of the week. Well, as we come to mid-January, there's a lot of the ball is rolling. There's no more breaks. Everybody's getting their resolutions in their 2022 going. The UFC started last night. Early in the week, it wasn't just the UFC coming back. Invicta Fighting Championships held their first event and crowned a new atomweight champion. The reason I'm mentioning that is I know we don't cover it a lot here on Sunday Submission, that promotion, but it's worth noting because many of the women that fight in the that wind up fighting in the UFC have come through Invicta Fighting Championships. So it's worth noting and keep an eye on them, even though they're not on Fight Pass anymore. They're on Access TV. Invicta FC 45 was on a Wednesday night. It was only a 6-fight card, which normally you kind of think like, oh, you're used to seeing these stacked UFC, especially the folks that at MMAnews.com used to watching a stacked UFC card. But on a Wednesday night, a 6-fight card is not too bad. And the other thing is, especially with the news of the price increase of the UFC pay-per-views, this event was free for everyone to watch. It was on the Invicta FC YouTube channel. I believe MMA Junkie also put it on there. But if you just wanted to watch it without any of the ads and all the stuff that everyone has on their web pages, Invicta FC had you covered. Jessica Delboni is a new atomweight champ there. She had a rematch against Alicia Zappitella. If you didn't watch that first fight, there was some controversy about how things turned out. A lot of folks thought that Delboni should have won, and so did she. She already had gotten herself a crown. And then in the rematch, not for nothing, as much as she won. She's a new atomweight champion, but this time around, Zappitella definitely gave her a run for her money. She went back to her bread and butter of her wrestling. If you haven't watched these ladies fight, it's definitely one of the more entertaining fights, along with some of the stuff that went on last night that I saw as far as returning mixed martial arts this week. So if you haven't checked that out, go to Invicta FC's YouTube channel real quick and watch that. It's only 6 fights. I spoke to 2 of the fighters on that card. For me, there was something definitely to get you as excited, some pre-seasoning before you got to their weekend. But that's enough of that. Anyway, let's just jump right into the UFC Vegas 46. The Giga Chikadze versus Calvin Kattar was the main event. Going into it, Chikadze was a heavy favorite, and those odds shifted as the fight went on. So, MMAnews.com, we've got all the results. I usually bring them up, but I have something already primed for UFC 270, and considering all the social media embeds that are on the page of the results, so you can check out all the highlights. Listen, overall, the card, it was a little rough going when it started because of, let me see, I'm on the page now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decisions on a 10-fight card. However, and I know I talk about this a lot, some of those decisions were definitely, when people do fight of the night honors, it's one of those things where where it's you want it to go to decision because they fought so hard, not because it was boring or anything like that. So, um, and we had, in my opinion, we actually had a couple of those. But it looks like the honors. If I'm remembering correctly, I know we have an article up on MMAnews.com. If I'm remembering correctly, actually, let me just check it before I go through the results. Chikadze, yeah, fight of the night went to Qatar Chikadze, and then of course Slava with his performance of the night. And I'm going to get into that too. I mean, again, if you go to MMAnews.com, we have the highlights up, especially if you want to check out this. Um, oh no, that was a performance of the night. Went to Jake Collier, I guess, because he was a heavyweight. Hmm. Interesting. Unless that's wrong, could be wrong up on MMAnews.com. Check out the post fight. Go to UFC and check out Dana White's post fight press conference video. That's where you'll get the details on that. But definitely, fight of the night went to Chikadze in Qatar, and not for nothing, well deserved. Um, the that the, as I watched both of them, and I remember how everyone likes to bring up that hot fight with Qatar versus Holloway and how he took the time off. And I think we saw some evidence of how time off. I mean, if you do any sort of training, and or even if you just work out in general, and sometimes you can experience, like, especially if you go through a war, like say you go through a CrossFit, competition, time off before you come back, you'll find that you perform a little better. Qatar fought his fight with Holloway, came away, with damage, and it looked like, and even Dana White said so in the post-fight press conference, how taking some time off. I mean, he even said, like, you need a year off after a fight like that, and it looks like we're seeing evidence of how rest. I remember back in the day when you watching this sport, there's a lot of guys that are, no days off. I'm back in the gym on Monday, but you're a human being. Granted, combat sports athletes are different kind of human beings, especially when it comes to those that compete at this level. But you're still human at the end of the day, and one way or the other, the body is going to let the person know, you know, I need a fucking break here. And so now I remember, I'll never forget. I think it was 2003 when Boss Rutan came out of retirement. He fought on an event that only had one pay per view. It was WFA, World Fighting Alliance, and they blew all their wad, paying all these high profile names to be on the card. He was supposed to fight Kimo Leopoldo, and then Leopoldo popped hot for some sort of steroid, and he wound up fighting Warpath, or I forget the guy's name. He wore wrestling singlet. He was a big Native American fighter. Um, Short notice, but there was like a lot of like lead up to, I think Showtime actually might have featured the documentary like lead up to that event. And one of the things Boss Rutan said in his pre-fight, like, what do they call that? Unfiltered or whatever they do for every pay-per-view, but it's a version of that. And one of the things Boss Rutan said as he got older, he was like, I'm realizing how important rest is. Like, I'm training, but I'm also making sure I make time to rest too. And that era combat sports athlete, mm, that era combat sports athlete would definitely overtrain. I mean, the guys that came up through a gym like what was the gym that Chael Sonnen and Randy Couture and all of them came through? Gyms like that were like, you had to question their mental state when it came to training, and what they put their bodies through. But that's why they all had the successful careers that they had. But they also realized when it was time to hang it up. But a lot of them probably fought longer than they should have. But I'm digressing. Back to 46. With Qatar's performance, that's just proof of some well deserved time off and rest can do. You were saying he had no contact up until this past summer, right? So that's only a few months where he started like sparring and doing stuff like that again. And I think we saw that he handled, because it's not like it wasn't. Maybe if I'd have to rewatch it, but it didn't, definitely wasn't like a one way beating, because he definitely he came away with some damage himself, but not as bad as Chikadze did. Um, it was funny because with all the finishes Chikadze had, it was like understandable why he was the favorite with the odds makers, especially with the time away and the guys that Chikaze has been putting away. However, the when right when the fight started, I remember I always kind of change my picks when I see them face off at weigh-ins and stuff. So when the fight started, I already figured at range, Giga Chikaze all day. Mid range, because of the boxing guitar and everything he did with Holloway, I was just like, if Chikaze doesn't get the range he wants, then he's gonna have to deal with the pressure of someone like Qatar. And it looks like Qatar had the same plan, because not only did he chased Giga around. I remember Bisping was commenting on how well his footwork was, but listen, 5 rounds after a while, you get tired. Your feet aren't so light, and especially if someone that just keeps pressing on you. And the other thing that he did was throw. I mean, he rushed in with the elbows. He threw elbows like a wild man at one point. I think it was round 2 or 3 where he just did 1, 2, 1, and we saw the damage at the end of that. I mean, went right to the hospital. I think they both were sent to the hospital as a precaution. But man, definitely a fight of the night, well deserved. A great main event to kick off the year for the UFC, especially with the pay-per-views next weekend. I'm glad someone asked Dana White at the post-fight press conference, especially as it comes to pay-per-view prices. With the increase, everybody's kind of not happy about the increase. So Dana White clarified that because of the deal they have with ESPN, that was an ESPN decision, and / Disney. Because if you saw, they raised that package, that Hulu, Disney, ESPN, when it came out, it was this great deal. And then individually, last year, those all went up for the monthly. And then now we're seeing the plus the pay-per-view. Now we're seeing the pay-per-view. I don't think they hit them with the monthly, but increase. But I wouldn't be surprised if that comes like second, third quarter, or whatever. But anyway, they added the price increase to the pay-per-views. So Dana White even admitted he wasn't too happy about that. So we're just going to see what happens next week. But it looks like that's why I think they're trying to justify doubling up, with title fights and stuff like that. Because you have Moreno Figueiredo, and then the heavyweight main event. But anyway, well, we'll get more into that in a second, because I just wanted to make sure I pointed out we talked about Qatar, and then the heavyweight co-main event with it's funny. My pick was wrong. I actually picked Sherman to win. When the heavyweights go at it, you always expect a slugfest, and somebody to get finished. We got a finish, but it was definitely I'm not used to heavyweight submissions, but that's what we got. Collier got the submission. He choked him in the first round, but I feel like when he was on top of him and hitting him, that he cut him. I don't know if it was an elbow or from just a regular strike, but there was a cut that Sherman had right here, and I think that might have added to the tap, because the way he did sink in the choke. The hand was across. He was able to get his hand past his throat and pull on it. And plus, big guys like that, sometimes, I mean, I've tapped from card. Anyone that grapples, excuse me, if you have an adrenaline dump and your cardio is just not there, especially after the holidays, like mine hasn't been lately. Um, you know, you could tap from that too. But I mean, he took some damage. They both traded some pretty. I mean, they're heavyweights in the UFC, so I doubt any punch from them doesn't feel like it hurts a lot. And so that was one of the few finishes that we got on the card. The other finish, before I get into Brandon Royval's awesome win at flyweight win, the other finish that we got was Slava Borishev when he knocked out Dakota Bush in the round 1. Credit to Dakota Bush to try to come at him and bring pressure, because the striking or his striking or whatever was something that, when you go against somebody that has a striking background, first thing you think is, well, I'm going to I'm going to put pressure. I'm going to take him down. Striker versus grappler. We're going to grapple, and I'm going to take you out. So it looked like that was Bush's plan. And Borshev survived it, and then once I don't know if Dakota Bush like spent his gas tank or another again adrenaline dump or something to that effect in the first round, but he he uh he definitely seemed to like try his plan, and it looked like it didn't work out. And then as soon as they're back to the feet, and the again the replay, we have the did I share it? I don't want to share it on here. Go to MMAnews.com. We have the results up. I have the link. The link will be in the description. The link is also up on the Twitter stream here. But definitely after he spun him towards the cage, swung to make his hands come up, and then came low with a shot to the liver that was like just so spot on. And I mean, if you're a fan of great striking, you definitely like that finish right there, because as soon as I saw it land, I remember I started yelling before even the guys on the broadcast. So as soon as I saw it pop, I was again, I'm a fan of. So I mentioned Boss Rutan, so I'm no surprise. I'm a big fan of Boss Rutan. I got all his like training stuff and watch all of his fights and stuff like that. So when you see a beautiful liver shot like that, it is something to behold. And shout out to Slava for getting that highlight reel finish. I wouldn't be surprised if he's that if you are following him, he's definitely on my radar after that win. And then Brandon Royval, man, I was so happy to see him come back, because the fight with him last year, the fight before Brandon Moreno got his shot to at the title, we saw Royval just kind of like him and Royval were kind of like on the same pace towards same trajectory at 125. Excuse me. And you know, when they faced one another, that was something that could have been fight of the night, in my opinion. And I feel like that's a fight that in the future that we should all get excited for, because of the energy and the way both those guys fight. I was upset that the shoulder injury happened to Royval back then, but he recovered from that and he's been coming back. I mean, last night we saw, um, he got a decision win, but again, there's boring decisions and there's fights like this. So this fight was definitely one of the ones that you definitely can't not you don't look past Brandon Royval and where he's at. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, it's next week, so he just fought. They're not going to be able to like he fought 3 rounds, because you have to think about. Remember, this was a 10 fight card. I think it was originally supposed to be 13. I mentioned it last week in the last Sunday submission, but the COVID protocols, and it sucks. I know everybody fucking hates hearing about it by now, including me, but there's 3 chances for fights to get scratched on fight week now with the way everything is going. So they have the pre-fight test, the home test that they have to take before they get there, the one they take when they get there, and then then the next one they take after weigh-ins. I mean, they're flying guys in midweek because of stuff that happened, moving fights that were on this card to 270. Again, we're going to get into that in the last 10 minutes here, but it's again, if you are on Twitter, make sure you follow the UFC News Twitter handle. On top of all the other guys that break news, like Nolan King over at Junkie, and guys like that. But and of course, the ESPN folks, but Akamoto and all them. But that don't be surprised if that's the trend of 2022 that we see. Or if they overbook and start putting more backup fighters on the card. If they're not, they're probably going to start after this week again. It was a 10-fight card. They lost a lot of stuff because there's a lot of opportunity now, especially with everything going on. There's a lot of chances that I would assume they protect main events at all costs, especially for something like next week. And I guess that's a good segue to move into UFC 270. So I had this primed up. If you got tired of looking at my big ass head, let's look at UFC 270. There's a really good sports bettor that I follow on Twitter, Luca Fury, who like took a break from calling fights and stuff, and he's gotten back into it this year. He actually predicted the main event like spot on last night, and for Qatar, who was the underdog. So if you're not following him and you like betting, he might be somebody you might want to follow. He had picked Qatar to win the way that he won, and that's, I think he was a plus 200 underdog going into the week before the odds changed during the fight, because they show those live odds on TV now, especially for you in New York. Shout out to my folks in my neck of the woods, because now both New York and New Jersey can be degenerates together. um, anyway, but looking at this one, because he tweeted something this morning, and I wonder if he responded to me yet. I don't see him. No, not yet. He said something this morning of how, and trying to do research and predict this main event for this fight, it's going to be something that's going to be changing almost up until probably weigh-ins or first bell or something like that. And I'm kind of in the same boat too, because first of all, these guys have history together. They train together, right? And anyone that's done like wrestling or any sort of contact sport where you train with the same people to face individual matches, when there's reads, like you can tell when there's reads that you get by training with the same people that other folks won't see, until it's like super obvious. Like you can tell, it's almost like poker, like they're the game faces that only the tells that only your training partners know, no one outside of your gym knows. So that history together, that's something that both Ngannou and Gan have. Um, they've sparred together. They know stuff that before they split anyway. They knew where the weaknesses of each other were and their strengths and what to work. Obviously, if we're looking at this image here, you have Ngannou, who's the champion and has finishing power, and then you have the technically skilled striker and Gan, because of his kickboxing experience, who can probably trade with him, avoid those power shots, and maybe exhaust him into falling into a trap and maybe getting a TKO. But this is mixed martial arts. So both of them are in the realm of striking. One is on the power side, the other is on the technical, sweet science side, so to speak. Not that it's, no boxing people get offended. I know you guys like getting offended easily. But I think if it goes to the ground, the thing about Ngannou, who's a little bit bigger, muscular, like he's a little more massive. If it goes to the ground, I feel like cardio will probably be an issue for someone like him, because when you have a big body, big muscles like that, you need more oxygen to feed it. So I wouldn't be surprised if not Gan's game plan to kind of like keep him at range. Like a lot of teep kicks, a lot of front kicks, kicking at the legs to keep him at range, so he can't fire off those bombs of his left and right hands that he'll throw at him. But he only needs one to land for the fight to be done. We've seen that already. I mean, with the whole F-150 or whatever, how hard they said how hard he hits. The other thing is, and this was the thing I asked on Twitter to Mr. Fury. We keep hearing about his Ngannou's contract. It keeps coming up in the news. So when you look at the business side of fighting, outside of the technique and the skill and the glory of combat, I mean, he's already seen the mountaintop. Gan wants to see it. They were friends once. How much of that is going to influence Francis Ngannou's motivation to win or lose? And the reason why I say it, and again, I'm not I don't know anything about negotiation. I'm actually reading a book on negotiations now. I mean, I've studied some game theory, but when it comes to stuff like this, Dana White likes to say it all the time, and he's right most of the time, almost all the time when it comes to knowing about this business. We don't know about this business, so we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they kind of addressed it when they talked about Caitlin Chikagian's last night. Someone, because that was the last fight in her contract. And there was no mention. Dana White even said when they asked that question that she was, in fact, as of last night anyway, before I recorded this post-fight press conference, that she was a free agent. Does that mean you're not interested in signing her because she's not the most entertaining fighter? Because that's a big complaint folks like to. There's even memes out there about it. I like her. I like all those people that come out of Long Island, Sarah Longo connection, just because I have some connections to that gym personally. Um, however, you know, the business side of things, how deep does that go in the psyche of the fighter, especially in this day and age when you got Tyson Fury mentioning your name, and it's easier to walk away from your contract if you lose versus if you win. At least that's my take from what I hear from the history of the sport, from what I've heard of from other fighters and podcasts and things like that. Um, so I'm wondering if that's why, because I think let's since I have it up on the screen here, let's look at the odds for this fight because I usually have them. See, so he's a slight underdog right now, Francis Ngannou, and he's a champion. Slight underdog, plus 105, minus 125. I mean, why is he the underdog if he's coming off of the wins? Is it because of the complaining and the stuff he's been? You know what I mean? That's can be perceived as a negative attitude for folks that don't care about fighter pay and all that stuff like that. You know what I mean? If you're one of those guys that see that, then that's something that you do have to factor in. Like, where's his head at? Does he really want to even be there anymore? Because you know, folks will probably say like, "Yo, go ahead and go try this, go try and do another Mayweather McGregor thing with Tyson Fury." Um, and the only way it would happen, because I think I talked about this last Sunday too. Tyson Fury's under Bob Arum, Top Rank, and all of them. So we all know how Dana White feels about Bob Arum, let alone doing anything like that ever again. It's not something he speaks of fondly. Granted, everyone made out like bandits, financially. Not something he speaks of fondly. But that I'm not surprised that he's the underdog here. And again, the this is going to be a fight, especially with the power coming from both guys. I'm anxious to see who goes to grappling first. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a grappler now in this period of my martial arts journey. Um, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup to see. And not for nothing, nobody asked for Moreno Figueiredo 3, but I'm there for it. I love the first two. Big fan of Brandon Moreno because not just because I'm Mexican, but because I'm a big fan of Brandon Moreno. I've been a fan of him since he was on the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, the guy's just always whatever he has as far as his energy and his skill and his just attitude. I'm 100% there for it. Um, and then we have the rest of the card. So right now, they moved some stuff around. So like this fight is already off. I don't know. So I don't know what they're. I believe they're. They've already moves found an alternate, right? I forget because Greg Hardy mangled his finger. So this fight this is already not up to date. Again, the news will probably be up to date for UFC 270. So if you're not following that Twitter handle, like I said, if you're not following UFC news, you should. But if you want to know my pick for this fight, um, I'm looking at like they're as far as their dimensions, I feel like they're almost even. It's just as far as musculature, like their frames are probably the same, but Ngannou's definitely got more muscle. And again, if as somebody that used to be a frequent striker, um, I wouldn't be surprised if Cyril Gahn tries to invoke his technical skill, the leg reach. Wow. See, Ngannou's got leg reach over a Gahn, but Gahn knows how to use his legs better. So I wouldn't be surprised if if you see a lot of those teep kicks and front kicks and those straight leg kicks to kind of keep Ngannou far away or to make him strike. I mean, it's going to be in California, so I'm wondering, with big men like that as a main event, I would imagine they're going to use a big cage too, which will allow them Gonzo to do some footwork. So my pick, I wouldn't be surprised if we get an upset, or not an upset, but if the favorite wins here. Um, And again, then there's all that other stuff in the back that you have to wonder about. But that's it for me for as far as looking ahead at that card. Again, thanks for those that are watching. Again, I'm still here, I'm still standing. So make sure you thumbs up, like, subscribe. Give me a follow on Twitter if you want to see this live as I stream it before I upload it to the MMAnews.com YouTube channel. And again, make sure you check out MMAnews.com for all the UFC related news, results, and hoopla that is associated with that promotion and some other combat sports stuff too. Take care. I'm tapping out. I'll see you next week. 7 takeaways next week. UFC 270. Peace.